and good to have you with us in the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, tonight we're going to put the spotlight one more time on the jobs crisis. You may have read about it, a recent report by CMI that said that since the lockdown hit us, India has seen actually a loss of 19 million, 1.9 crore jobs. 5 million of them just in the last month. Now, this is just in the salaried class. Month after month, the situation changes. While in the unorganized sector, there has been some revival since the lockdown opened and restrictions on lifting up. We did see some of the people get back to work, get back to their jobs and business. But we are far, far away from what this situation was, which already was actually a crisis even before the lockdown hit us. Tonight, I want to talk about just how bad the situation is, what are the sectors that are actually still struggling, and what can India do to improve the job situation. What percentage of the jobs lost, businesses shut, can actually be revived in the near term. Let me just actually quickly take you through what the data suggested by CMI. And this is in the period of April to July. Salaried jobs lost 18.9, roughly 19 million. Daily wages jobs lost about 6.8 million. Within the businesses, 1 million people lost their jobs or businesses. It's only the farm sector where you've seen an increase in employment, which according to CMI itself doesn't say much, because those who are rendered jobless often go back to their villages, often go back to their farms and pick up whatever they can, irrespective of what it actually earns for them. So let's, without wasting any time, say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Professor Santosh Mehrotra, Professor of Economics at the Center for Informal Sector and Labour Studies at JNU. Gopal Agarwal, National Spokesperson for the BJP. Aditya Mishra, CEO for CIEL HR. Mr. R. Sriram, Resident Editor of Economic Times, and Sumit Singh, Group CMO of InfoEdge India. I'll also speak with Mahesh Vyas of the CMI later on this show, so stay tuned for that as we dwell deeper into the report that CMI came out for this month. But let me actually begin this conversation with Aditya Mishra. Aditya, what's the jobs market scenario right now? How many more people are we seeing on a daily basis register and start hunting for jobs?
I think what is happening is in the formal sector, there is the crisis continues. There are only a few subsectors where there is some activity. However, sectors like tourism, travel, aviation, and all of that, we know that it's not nowhere close to the pre-COVID stage of hiring. And even in sectors like construction, where certain government-sponsored construction work is happening, apart from that, there is hardly any work which is happening in the construction sector. Manufacturing and IT, there is a slow revival as the US and European spend in the IT is going up a bit compared to the COVID time. There is some bit of hiring happening, but the distress is felt in most of the sectors even today. I think it's just a handful of sectors like digital commerce for the essential commodities. So the ones which the people want, for example, as an essential requirement, like an essential healthcare or a essential FMCG product. But all the discretionary spend, we don't see the industries like white goods, automobiles. The distress is quite serious there. So as far as if you look at this EPFO data month to month, there is some positive in July, but that could be due to the the filing of the PF returns, which are possibly delayed due to the relaxations which have been offered. But what we see on the ground level is quite a bit of a distress even now.
Okay, seeing quite a bit of distress even now at the ground level, barring a few sectors that may be showing some activity. Sumit Singh, let me bring you in as well. From your own data that you guys regularly, mine and analyze, what's the story being told? What kind of jobs are people looking for, and how much has it actually gone up in the last few months?
So, we publish a job index every month, and we're seeing the situation improve month on month. So, the job index for April had gone down as far as 62%. Jobs now on a year on year basis are down at about 46, 47%. We saw June and July recover well over April and May. So, month on month, there has been improvement. Very similar to the sectors that were just mentioned, we're also seeing activity similarly. The most impacted sectors, of course, are hotel and aviation, tourism. The least impacted sectors, of course, are healthcare, medical, biotech, pharma, even BPO, FMCG, because the essential goods and food and beverages, they are kind of not that impacted. So they're the least impacted. We're seeing different kinds of roles. In roles, if we look at functional areas, HR admin, advertising, these roles are impacted very adversely. Compared to that, if we look at functional areas like IT, functional areas which are more in the space of customer care and management, they are less impacted. Of course, medical and healthcare professionals being the least impacted.
Yes, absolutely. I can imagine why that is so. But, of course, the big sectors like hospitality, services badly hit. And on a daily basis, we're reading reports about businesses on the verge of shutdown where they don't see, how they will ever be revived. In fact, I just want to break this down into multiple aspects, because when you say jobs crisis, it can mean so many different things for so many different sectors, in organized and unorganized, in big cities, in smaller towns, in the rural areas as well. Let's talk about the salaried class, and I just want to read out one data point that we've actually seen put out by research agencies. 1.7 crore salaried jobs were lost in April 20. Then another 0.1 million jobs lost in the subsequent month, which is the month of May. Some of them were regained in the month of June. 3.9 million jobs gained in month of June, 50 lakh jobs lost in July. So in all, 1.89 crore salary jobs have been lost so far since the lockdown hit us. Now, this is the big one, because my understanding is that it's not just about what's happened because there was a lockdown. Many of the companies who may have stretched themselves, reduced costs in other ways, including salary cuts, may now find themselves in a more difficult place and may start looking at the options of layoffs or shutting down verticals, so shutting down certain businesses. Is that something that we're seeing on a growing basis, Mr. Sriram? Do you agree with that? That perhaps, especially for the corporates, organized sector, the worst may still be yet to come?
So we don't really know how things are going to pan out in the next 4 to 6 months, because I think the next 4 to 6 months are really the very crucial months, because in this period we will probably see either the lockdown coming to being unwound and coming to an end. We may probably see possibility of a vaccine coming into the market at some point, either late in 2020 or early 2021, and we could see some kind of a revival in the economy. A lot of people are predicting that the second half of the economy, second half of the fiscal year is likely to be better than the first half of the fiscal year. Now, you don't know how things are going to pan out. There may be some nasty shocks and surprises that may make us stumble, that may create hurdles in faster economic growth. The number of sectors that are affected, the ones that have been mentioned by the speakers ahead of me, which is restaurants, hospitality, hotels, manufacturing, automobiles, other kind of services, are the informal sector, the small shopkeepers, the small merchants, who have been very badly affected. I think there is going to be a fair amount of wealth destruction really happening there. Many of these businesses, whether it is small shops or restaurants or hotels may probably shut down permanently, and some of these jobs may really be lost permanently. We don't know how this is going to pan out, but this is quite possible that it will happen. On the other hand, a lot of the other sectors which are doing very well, like pharmaceuticals, services, information technology, higher-end automobiles, agriculture, the tractor industry, a lot of these sectors will continue to do well. So what you're really seeing now is a very wobbly kind of a recovery. I think the speaker before me mentioned how month on month there has been a bit of a pickup or a revival in jobs. That is also reflected in some of the economic data that we are seeing, but it's too early to say as to how things will pan out. So we got to see over the next 4 to 6 months what is really happening in the economy. If the lockdown gets really unbound and we're really back to some kind of normalcy, I mean, not full normalcy, some kind of normalcy, and there is hope that the vaccine is effective and will come in soon, then I think the growth and the pickup in growth will be faster, and some of these jobs will probably come back. But some section of jobs, some companies, some entrepreneurs, some businesses will definitely be gone forever. They are not going to come back, and that is one of the tragedies that we are witnessing in this pandemic, and how how the one of the economic shocks that has hit us is the fact that some sectors, some companies and jobs are really not going to come back. So how things are going to go, it's very difficult to say. It all depends on the lockdown, economic growth, possibility of a vaccine, people's sentiments improving, government measures to boost spending, boost economy. It's going to be a very, I mean, I shouldn't use the word interesting, but it's going to be a really interesting 4 to 6 month period that we are headed for.
Okay, no, I completely agree with what you're saying, but I don't know if we're going to get a vaccine anytime soon this year, or even for it to reach the people, how quickly it can be done even next year once we found it is going to be a big question mark. But for example, and to add to the point that Mr. Sriram was making, if you look at the companies cutting down their employee costs, according to the corporate filings from 40 of the BSE 100 companies, the top companies that we have, the filings that they made to the stock exchange for the April to June period, that first quarter of this financial year, the employee costs have reduced sharply. And I just want to give few examples. Mahindra Finance down 36.7%, Havells India down 27%, Tata Motors employee costs down 26%, HDFC Life Insurance down employee costs down 21%, Maruti Suzuki cut costs by 15%. Close on their heels were Interglobe Aviation, that's Indigo for you, employee costs down 14.8%, and so on and so forth. And these are across sectors that we're actually looking at. So Mr. Santosh Mehrotra, like I said, beginning with the focus on the salaried class, what is the next, the immediate outlook to your mind? How quickly can we get some of these jobs back?
Not quickly at all. Every projection for the fiscal year 21 is talking about a contraction of the economy, and that means contraction of jobs. Contraction of the economy could be anywhere between 10 to 15% from the 1920 level. Secondly, we heard your other panelists. Everyone sounds a bit hopeful, but the RBI itself told us, the governor himself told us 2 months ago that the RBI does not expect before the second half of the year for recovery to begin. Second half of next year, i.e. FY22. Recovery to begin. Recovery means we may still not get back to the 1920 income levels even before the end of 22, which means that we will not get back to 1920 income levels before 22-23. Now, let's just remember that unemployment levels already in 28-29 were at a 45-year high. We know that. Youth unemployment had already shot up to 18%, and graduate unemployment was at the rate of 36%. Now, given this contraction that everyone is saying is going to happen, these jobs are not coming back for a long time to come. And it is pretty obvious from the way MSMEs are closing down. So there is plenty of evidence that we should not be expecting the salaried jobs to be coming back for a fair bit of time. And the vaccine, no one in their right mind, let me just say, the vaccine, no one in their right mind would say that we will, suppose we get a vaccine which is tried and tested and safe by early next year. How soon will we be successful in providing it to 134 billion people? How long will it take? Please remember that
Correct.
when you're immunizing only children under 5-year-olds, under 3-year-olds, yet in normal time 65% immunization. In a normal year, for children only, here you've got to immunize children, adults, everyone, every single human being. And how long that will take? Assuming that we can ramp up production.
No, I completely agree with you that as far as the vaccine reaching the common man is concerned, that's going to take a really long time, especially for a country our size. And so we always, for a long time, we will have to be extremely careful on that front. But in fact, Mr. Mehrotra, the point that you raised, and let me start with you and then go across to Gopal Agarwal on it and other panelists. What does it mean? Help us understand, help the common man understand a scenario. What would it look like when we say our growth was negative 5 to 15%? We've been so used to having a growth of 6 to 8%, one of the fastest growing. Suddenly when we contract, when our economy contracts so much, what could it possibly mean for me?
What it means for you is that many of you will lose jobs. Those who don't lose jobs are in jobs will face falling wages and falling salaries. That's the second impact. The third impact is that because of the fall in jobs and the fall in wages, demand will fall even further. Therefore, more companies and more small units will begin to close down. Fewer people will have less money to spend than they were spending 6 months earlier, and less money than they were definitely much less money than they were spending 1 year earlier. This is a multiplier effect which works its way through the economy for months to come, which is the reason why I'm suggesting that the unemployment rate is going to itself have its own multiplier effect, and it will deepen the crisis, the fiscal crisis of the government, which is the reason why many of us have been arguing for 4 months that the size of the fiscal stimulus is barely 1% of GDP, as compared to that in 2008 when the global economic crisis hit, which was not even half as severe a crisis in the history of our country. We put in place a 3 to 4% of GDP fiscal deficit. I'm not talking about a monetary deficit, monetary stimulus. Of course, a monetary stimulus was also put in place. But there was a fiscal stimulus of that size. Money has to be put in people's hands. Companies will not borrow no matter how much liquidity you give to the bank, no matter how many credit guarantees you give to the bank. People will not borrow these companies if there is no demand for them, for their products. And every other day we are getting the NSIC has just come out. The National Small Industries Corporation has just come out with its survey. Before that, the All India Manufacturers Association, which is again a MSME's organization, had come out with a survey, which are all saying that the actions taken so far are not enough. The size of the fiscal stimulus has to
not enough. Gopal Agarwal, come in on that. You've now heard both, our experts raising the issue of the entire jobs crisis, the number of jobs lost. Some of them may never return. Add to that, and many experts have raised this, that the stimulus that was announced, which was largely saying, well, we are giving you schemes to help you borrow more money, but people don't want to borrow money right now or cannot really borrow more money. So how are we going to solve this crisis, the exploding jobs crisis?
The thing is that we all agree that there is a job crisis, there is a problem in the job market, therefore the Manrega etc. has been increased. If the government has increased the Manrega spend from 61,000 crores to almost more than 1 lakh crore, that means that there is a need for unemployment bonus or unemployment payment to the migration labor. That is one thing. And but the thing is that people are saying that fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus, or reforms and other package, etc., together have to work on. We have seen the fall in the GST collection, direct and indirect tax collection at the government. But still today, even the finance minister announced that how much GST, the indirect tax rate have been reduced. So the government is relying on basically the reform process. We have given what could be done on the fiscal stimulus package. The RBI has given what it can do maximum on the monetary stimulus package. It has given almost 10 lakh crore of monetary stimulus. Then IBC restructuring of loans are taking place. Now the government is working on important reform process with regard to 3-4 policy like industrial policy, logistic policy. Government is working on reducing 40% of cost on the logistic policies. E-commerce, we are seeing certain sectors which are in trouble, and also there are certain sectors which can act as a sunrise. So we are focusing on them. Now the government basic where a roadmap ahead is economic reforms. This alone can revitalize and recatalyze our economy. And the loans, etc. I do not agree with all the statements of Mr. Mehrotra, because the loan has been helping to the industries, particularly daily wages, like taxi walas, etc. Even patri wala, redi wala, they need very, very small capital, but that is very much needed, and that is showing results. Ultimately, government focused on the fiscal stimulus and pushing liquidity into the rural area. And today also, we have seen report that the rural economy is looking up. Second thing through which the demand generation that the government is focusing on is on the infrastructure development. So I say that there can be a statement or the opinion should go for more fiscal stimulus, but government has to look limitations. We have to comply with the GST requirement of the state government fund transfer. Even the finance commission requirement of the state fund transfer is taking place. There is an extreme expenditure on the COVID crisis, etc. So there at the government level, there is a priority to tide over the problems in the job market. Government has temporarily worked on the Manrega and the fund transfer through that. That was not, if there was no problem in the job,
Okay,
that
but I am specifically talking about a different segment.
20 seconds.
Mr.
Yeah,
Gopal
I'm telling you
Agarwal,
about
Manrega
that.
cannot be a solution to jobs crisis in the long term, Mr.
That's
Gopal
what I'm
Agarwal.
telling.
Manrega
You
is
are
simply
talking,
a support
Tanvi
system
ji,
for people who have absolutely no livelihood coming through and no other support system. महीने में 10 दिन का काम मिल जाए तो इससे कुछ लॉन्ग टर्म सोल्यूशन तो नहीं निकल पाएगा मिस्टर गोपाल अग्रवाल.
तन्वी जी मुझे पूरा बोलने
अच्छा,
दीजिए.
ओके.
मैंने क्या कहा है कि गवर्नमेंट जॉब मार्केट को, इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट को और इकोनॉमिक साइकिल को रीस्टार्ट करने के लिए government is focusing on the economic reforms in the industrial policy, reforms in the logistic policy, reforms in the retail trade policy, e-commerce, foreign trade policy. These are the areas where the Atmanirbhar Bharat or foreign investment for manufacturing sector or establishing our manufacturing sector will come, and through that, our job market and economic development or growth will be catalyzed. So this is a conscious roadmap that the government is taking. We have to work. There is a limitation on the fiscal stimulus. There is monetary stimulus, which the government, whatever the capacity was, the government has already done that. Now we are focusing on reform process that with at the time of demand creation in the rural economy, similarly demand creation in the infrastructure
So,
sector
Mr. Gopal
will
Agarwal,
help the industries and the
okay,
ecosystem on
okay.
level playing
Let me
field,
ask you this.
better
Since you say
manufacturing,
there is a
etc.
constraint on fiscal stimulus, because the let me ask you this: since you say there is a constraint on fiscal situation, and you don't, then what will you do even with for your Manrega? Over 50% of your Manrega budget is already exhausted in 4 months. Yeah, rest of the year is still yet to go by. Now, if you don't increase the budget for that, then what will you do?
No, the thing is that for that we have already said that the RBI has said and the finance ministry is on in agreement that we have to relax the fiscal deficit target. That already under clause 6 we have done that. We are not saying that the fiscal deficit is sacrosanct at this point of time. The current situation demand that we have a expansionary policies and we are relaxing the fiscal stimulus. Second thing is that the RBI has also agreed, and many economists and the government has
Okay.
agreed that we have to increase the borrowing, which was almost 67% of our GDP. The borrowing limit has already been increased to about 82. It can go to 90% of our GDP. So these are the two ways through which we will take care of whatever we have announced and whatever is urgently required. In addition to that, just
Okay.
increasing
Before I
fiscal
go back to
stimulus
our
is
other
difficult.
panelists, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Mr. Gopal Agarwal. Before I go across to our other panelists, let me go back to Professor Mehrotra to see if he wants to come in on this. Professor Mehrotra, few of these steps that the BJP is talking about are long-term reforms. Is this something we can look at in the immediate term to give some more relief to somehow create some demand or jobs?
Some of the long-term reforms that have been introduced are very welcome. Finally, the APMC Act has been done away with. It will help to revive agricultural marketing, which is good news. But long-term reforms are very nice, but they are long-term by definition. Point one. Point two, Manrega. Sanvi, you rightly pointed out that 58,000 crores has already been spent of the 1 lakh crores. 60 plus 40 is 1 lakh, of which 58,000 crores on Manrega has already been spent in May, June, July. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of that is that you have no choice but to increase spending now. So, I'm glad to hear from Gopal Agarwal ji, who I should say is a friend, that government can borrow more. But what has the chief economic advisor to the government of India, to the Ministry of Finance said? Yes, we will think about a fiscal stimulus, but we will think about it after a vaccine is in place. Well, when is the vaccine going to come into place? We don't know. And honestly, what is the macroeconomic implication of what the government is saying, whether it's the CEA or the implication is that the economy needs a stimulus now, fiscal stimulus now, because demand is collapsing now, but we will spend the money 6 or 8 months down the road. We will borrow then and we will spend then. Well, that means the contraction will become deeper 6 or 8 months down the road. So you'll have to borrow more. If you borrow now, you'll have to borrow less, because you will be able to help to stimulate demand and therefore stimulate output and incomes and therefore your tax revenue. So there is some lack of understanding of how macroeconomic dynamics work. This has been said over and over again.
Okay.
Over and over again this has been said, but this is somehow not understood by the policymakers in this government.
Okay. Okay, point noted, Professor Mehrotra. Mr. Sriram, if I can come back to you on, any insights on to what extent has the government stimulus that was announced in May really worked? A lot of it was to do with enabling people to borrow more, but then initial reports suggested that banks are hesitant to lend and people are hesitant to borrow. Now that we are, in the end of August, what has been the feedback so far?
A couple of points. One is that it's not true to say that just because there is a borrowing program or a loan program that has been announced and people are not going to borrow or companies are not going to borrow. I don't think it is quite true to say that. And I think a lot of borrowing has been done by companies taking advantage of the guarantees or the lower rates that the government has offered, especially when it comes to the MSME loan program, which we all know that was announced in May, and which said that around 3 lakh crore of loans extended to medium and small scale enterprises will be covered by a government guarantee. And not only will that happen, there will also be a fixed rate of interest that will be payable. I think for banks, it is about 9%, and for NBFCs, it is about 14%. Now, if you look at the latest data that has been given by the Finance Ministry, I think the sanctions out of this 3 lakh crore, the sanctions are somewhere around 1.5 or 1.4. I don't remember the exact figure now. But the amount that has been disbursed, that is the amount that has been gone from the banks and the NBFCs to small and medium enterprises, is around 1 lakh crore. That is the latest figure. You will see it in the Finance Ministry Twitter handle also, which will show that as of, I think, August 15th or sometime in August. The second thing is the RBI monetary policy and the RBI measures to boost liquidity, especially to second-tier NBFCs, low and middle-rated NBFCs, who are actually at the forefront of giving to the small and medium-scale sectors and who are at the forefront of lending to a certain section of the population who are not touched by the big banks. The disbursements and the lending there have picked up and picked up quite substantially. In fact, the NBFCs have now a lot more liquidity with them than they had about 6-8 months back. What is also happening at the same time is that there is a kind of a risk aversion in lending. So banks, NBFCs are quite naturally and quite obviously not wanting to open up the purse strings and lend to whoever they can or they should. They are keeping a very close watch on what are the borrower's finances, what does his balance sheet look like, whether he's able to repay, and they are disbursing money in a very careful, calibrated manner, which is why you're seeing, and along with the economic gloom that we are seeing, you are seeing the lending credit growth in the first 3 or 4 months of the year is around 6% odd. I think the latest figures for July show that. For July 2020 is around 6% odd, and whereas the same figure for July 2019 was around 10% odd. So the interesting thing here is that credit demand has not collapsed. So while it was 10% growth last year, it has not shrunk to 2% or 3%, nor has it gone into negatively. It is at 5-6%. And another interesting point to note is that a number of the small and medium scale sectors are getting money. And guess who else is getting money? Personal loans, grown by 10%. If you can imagine, personal loans are something taken by the salaried guys, and banks are very careful in who they give personal loans to. They give it only to the people who have salary accounts with them, and of course to businessmen who may want to take it for their own business expenses and all that. So it's grown by 10%. Now the 10% growth is lower than the 16% growth of last year, but it's still a growth of 10%. Housing loans have again grown. So it's not as if credit demand has completely collapsed. Liquidity position in NBFCs and a number of other companies have improved. Growth, especially at the retail level, has fallen from last year's levels, but has not collapsed. It is still growing, though at a very low rate, for obvious reasons, because the economy has really not picked up. And the MSME sector has got loans under the emergency credit guarantee scheme, which is around 3 lakh crore that has been offered by the government. Now, this is obviously not enough. We need to go to a level where we see double-digit credit growth and we see the economy picking up, demand picking up, investment going up. That is when you'll see double-digit credit growth. That is obviously not happening. Now, whether it will happen in the second half, nobody knows. I mean, you can put a crystal ball and gaze and say that, okay, by January next year, we'll have credit growth back at 10% levels or 12% levels. Nobody can predict these things, and obviously a lot of other factors are involved here. But so far, the measures that have been announced have helped improve liquidity. Money has gone out of the system. Money has gone to companies. And somebody, I think there was a discussion on Manrega. I want to mention the fact that 58,000 crore that has been spent in the first 4 months obviously means that a lot of money has gone into the hands of the workers, the rural poor, the rural laborers. Now, whether that is the 1 lakh crore is enough for the full year, probably not. So the government will have to think of raising that number from 1 lakh crore to about
Yes.
50,000 odd, by another 50,000 odd crore or 25,000 odd crore. I don't think that should be too much of a problem. I don't think we as a nation and as government should really worry about fiscal deficit now. I mean, to some extent, we shouldn't let things really go reckless and let things slip out of control. But we are already penciling in a fiscal deficit of more than 6-7% of GDP. I think it'll probably be a little higher. Given what is happening, given the circumstances, given the surroundings, given the economic climate, that is reasonable. That is something to be expected. So the first priority has to be to
so far,
kickstart growth,
actually, you're right,
kickstart
Mr.
industry,
Sriram.
and kickstart jobs.
Yes, so far
can
I
add?
haven't seen actually any even expert or agency or economist really raise the alarm on fiscal deficit or us going well beyond what was intended. I think everybody understands these are unprecedented times and almost every country is doing what it needs to do at this point to take care of its people. Before, yes, Professor Mehrotra, you wanted to come in?
Very quickly, just to say that, yes, borrowing is taking place. Yes, liquidity with the banks has increased, and as Sriram rightly noted, they are not willing to open their purse strings. But let us recall that the NPAs of the scheduled commercial banks still stood at 9% of their advances, so the NPA problem has not gone away. In other words, as they continue to lend to not so robust companies, which are now borrowing, who may collapse further down the road because the economy is not reviving, then we can expect to see the NPAs of the scheduled commercial banks rising further. In addition, let us recall that the NBFCs may have been lending, but the NBFCs, a significant proportion of them are in deep trouble also. They were part of the banking crisis. So now the NBFCs have begun to lend.
Yeah.
So we can expect a further problem down the road if the economy does not revive. So who will repay these loans?
Tanvi.
That's the real.
Yes. Yes, okay. I honestly want to just pull a step back. Very fair, legitimate points being raised by both Sriram and Professor Mehrotra. Yes, Gopal Agarwal.
I just want to tell you that with all respect to Santoshji, that economists always talk about both the options, that there are problems in both the options, we agree. Therefore, the government has to choose one way. We have chosen a reform process. At the same time, when we are giving loans, problems of NPA, etc., therefore, there is a credit guarantee scheme from the government, and that gives a multiplier effect to the larger percentage of loans coming to the industrial sector and pushing more liquidity into the system. So instead of directly giving a fiscal stimulus, the government has chosen on the industrial and other sector to give credit guarantee of 20% of loans to the banks. That will take away their risk aversion at the one point, and then also give a larger liquidity to the whole economic system. One thing. Second thing I just want to mention here is
yes, that's been factored in. Okay, that's been factored in. Now, can I go back to the larger issue?
No, one more point. I have been interacting at the international forums also. There is a big confidence in Indian economy, and globally people are saying that India can catalyze the economic growth in the world. India can be major driver in the economic growth.
That's okay, Mr. Gopal Agarwal. We'll have a conversation about what the world thinks of India another day. I'm sorry. Tonight I am more concerned about what people in the city of Mumbai to the village outside of Mumbai and interiors of Maharashtra and everywhere else. What is their future? Mr. Gopal Agarwal, when the economists and experts say the economy will be growing at -5%, -10%, what does that mean? When we are talking about losses in jobs in lakhs as numbers, 1.9 crore gone since the lockdown
Jobs will
hit
be
us.
created.
Some of it may have come back, but this is essentially. So I want to talk about this. Please don't sit here and right now
So
talk about what great ideas
the
foreign
job,
investors
how
have about
Tanvi,
India.
Tanvi, how job
Until
will
unless
come,
they help in
how
job
jobs
creation
will
today. Job creation 5 years later is not the conversation right now, Mr. Gopal Agarwal. People are going to be jobless this year.
The job
People will
will come
not have money to survive, to sustain their families this year. Let's talk about this year and next year first. And once everything revives, then we will talk about it. Fair enough. It's okay, great if the world is bullish in it. Can it provide me a job today? Now, if I can go back to two panelists who haven't spoken in a while, who actually have a closer sense of what's happening right now. Aditya Mishra, let me come to you. Give us some more insights in where finally are we seeing, if we are, any kind of demand for jobs, what kind, where is the revival right now?
See, right now, what we see is sectors where consumers are looking at it as essential. For example, FMCG and the supply chain through the digital e-commerce methods, education through the online methods, the essential healthcare systems. So that is where today the demand is there and jobs are there. Uh, I mean, the layoffs haven't happened. And some of the companies who have the money to keep their operations running, so they are expanding. But what is today the gap is the discretionary spend is not happening. So, for example, the number of consumers who would have bought the automobiles or the white goods or the travel that they would have done or the entertainment that they would have spent money on, so those things are not happening. I really do not know the economics part of it, how to push those things, but all of us know that this is the festive season in India, and most of those discretionary spend happens, or a large part of discretionary spend happens in this period of time. From my perspective, what I see is if we can
Yeah.
do something to really boost the consumption of that discretionary spend in the next 3 to 4 months, then a lot more jobs would come back, and the money that people have borrowed, they will be able to really plow that into the business and will be able to really, repay the interest and maybe some principal. So that is what we are seeing. Maybe the construction sector, for example, like residential and commercial real estate. Uh, construction employs a very large number of people. Manufacturing, it's directly and indirectly, it creates a lot of jobs. So we need to really boost these two sectors. The e-commerce sector today is doing well. Maybe education technology is doing well. Some financial technology companies are doing well, and essential healthcare is doing well. But these are not the sectors which actually create the millions of jobs that we want to be created. So the service sector naturally will
Right.
get a fillip if this construction and manufacturing, these two things happen. So one, the government can spend money on it, some of the projects that it can happen and somehow boost the sentiments. Vaccine is not coming in the next few months, but somehow the sentiments have to be boosted. So then it will take off is what we think. A lot of companies, I can tell you, the corporates have kind of understood how to generate productivity out of less. And once formal sector goes away and they are able to adjust with lesser number of people, it's going to take a long time
Yes.
for that job to come back. So that's another thing. And
No, you're
sort of
right
a,
for sure.
yeah.
It's in nicer words, it's what is called in management language, evolving with the pandemic, and in a post-pandemic world, how you can run your business efficiently. But it would also perhaps mean that as you go around cutting your costs and reducing your costs, you never go back to those levels. You never go back to having those roles and those people, those places, that kind of expenditure as part of your business strategy at all. Now, that is something that we will all have to get used to, and it will happen. It is happening across sectors. In fact,
Yeah, if
Sumit
I
Singh,
can
the
just
other thing
add
I
a
wanted to
small
check with
point.
you is,
Sorry.
what are portals like yours actually doing in helping people, hundreds of thousands of them looking for jobs right now? What can be, where do we bridge the gap between where the supply may be and people who may have actually lost their jobs in other sectors?
One of the most important things at this time is the fear and anxiety that a lot of job seekers are going through. So while a lot of them have lost their jobs, there are quite a few who are living under the fear that what is going to happen in the future. And we've heard all the panelists actually say that it's just so difficult to predict what's going to happen. One of the things that Naukri believes in, and we've always done, is that we've stood by our job seekers. And I think what is important for everyone, including these job seekers, to understand is today layoffs are happening because of the state that the economy is. Businesses are being forced to do so. It is not something that people are doing by choice or with a smile. There are enough companies who are trying to help these job seekers get jobs. There are enough companies that are trying to send people on sabbatical and help them in upskilling programs. We as Naukri, one of the important things that we're trying to take to both the job seekers and the recruiters is that you're not losing your job because you're a bad performer, right? You're losing your job due to the circumstance. So it's very important to understand that. We should not get into feeling low, feeling depressed because I'm not a good performer, because there are a lot of stigmas attached still, in society. When I lose my job, when I say I've got laid off, at least in India still. So we are actually saying we're standing by you. We created something called the Naukri Step Up program. It's a website which has a live tracker of jobs, because at this point in time, we wanted to get the companies, the roles that are being looked for, that are being currently hired. So the live tracker actually brings about all company jobs that are coming onto the portal in that week. There are lots of resources that we're trying to take to the job seekers, which will help them increase their productivity on work from home. There are lots of webinars we are doing almost every fortnight, which are attended by over about 25,000 job seekers every time we have a webinar, where we're getting industry experts.
Yeah, but Sumit, at the end of the day, skill upgradation may be something that we can look at and we can do at the but it will still bring us back to the question of, but who's hiring and how many jobs are there, to what extent can we upgrade people's skills to fill up those gaps? And that's something perhaps that we can leave for a conversation another day, because I'm completely out of time. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us on this conversation. Viewers, should be the biggest constant talking point in our country. You and I are constantly talking about it amongst our friends, our families, within our own circles. We all know of people who are struggling with their businesses, have had to shut their businesses, have seen salary cuts, have actually have a family member who's lost a job. This is the reality of an economic slowdown. An economic slowdown worsened due to a pandemic and a lockdown. Imagine a scenario where within a year and a half we've gone from a growth of 6% to being minus 5%, minus 10%. That simply means you're not going to be earning that much money. You will not have those kind of job options available. If we don't address this issue now and ensure that we are able to come up with some short-term solutions, then there will be a larger problem in our hands beyond this pandemic itself. In fact, let me go across to Mr. Mahesh Vyas, who's joining us right now. Mr. Mahesh Vyas, thank you so much for speaking with us. CMI recently came out with a report, and I think those numbers were startling. It raised the alarm bells for many people. 19 million jobs lost so far due to the lockdown and the pandemic. 5 million in the last month itself. But to your mind, for you, as you went deeper into the details, what was the biggest highlight or the takeaway from this report?
So let's first get the numbers clearly understood. So what we're seeing today, or rather as of the month of July, is that the total loss of jobs is of the order of 11 million. So we had lost about 122 million jobs in April, and much of it is recovered. What we have left now is with a deficit of about 11 million jobs compared to what we had in 2019-20. And progressively from April, we have seen the loss of jobs improving. So on an aggregate basis, jobs scenario is steadily improving. What was troublesome in the month of July is that when all kinds of jobs are improving, the jobs of the salaried classes is worsening. So while everything else is improving, salaried class people are seeing a big hit. So we saw 5 million jobs being lost amongst the salaried classes in the month of July itself. And the total outstanding losses as of July compared to 2019-20 is of the order of 18.9 million jobs. So nearly 19 million salaried jobs are still in deficit compared to we were in 2019-20. So that's what the big picture is, that the informal jobs in the unorganized sectors have come back, but salary jobs have not come back, and worse still, that they are getting worse as we progress ahead.
So yes, the two informal and formal sectors work differently. Let's talk about specifically the salaried class and the number that's come out now. Can it get worse from here? And I ask you this question because usually what we see is corporates move slowly when business starts getting tough. There are initially other costs which are reduced, then you look at salary cuts, and then you start looking at layoffs in a smaller and then a bigger way. So what I'm essentially trying to understand is the worst yet to come.
No, the worst happened in the month of April. That's when we saw the biggest hit. 17 million jobs were lost then. We are now at 19 million jobs lost. So that hit, which has improved for the rest of the economy, has gotten worse over here. But the biggest hit was in April. So what happened is in the month of April, lots of firms shut down. And sectors shut down, like travel and tourism, for example, is practically shut. To a large extent, restaurants are also shut, although takeaways are allowed. So many industries have seen a substantial shutdown in the month of April, and they have not recovered from there. Then what you're saying turns out to be true, that the rest of the corporates or the rest of the enterprises, and mind you, this is not only the corporate sector, it is even the unincorporated enterprises. There could be partnerships or there could be proprietorships. All kinds of enterprises are now not in those big hit sectors of April, but the remaining are seeing it too difficult. The lockdown has been too prolonged, has been kind of severe. Even if business begins, it's not big enough to actually stay in business. So some people are slowly folding up or curtailing their costs or curtailing their operations. And that is seen now. And it looks like it is possible that this can get slightly more worse in the coming months because this is the aftermath. This is the aftermath of a prolonged lockdown having an impact upon enterprises.
But let me ask you this, so many jobs lost, so many businesses shut down or on the verge of shutdown. What would be the larger impact on the economy itself? That's what I want to understand.
It's going to be a severe impact, of course, and therefore the forecasts are all ranging from -5% to -15% on GDP. And I think anyone who's making a forecast on the GDP is actually running into serious occupational risks associated with that. So the impact on the economy of people unwilling to spend is obviously going to be very severe. Incomes have actually shrunk. And the story on incomes is much worse than the story on jobs. So even the people in the unorganized sectors who have got their jobs back have got it at a lower wage rate. So household incomes have shrunk a lot more than jobs have shrunk. Because even people who have retained their jobs have retained it at the cost of salaries being cut and certainly not increased. So I think the impact of lower incomes is direct on the Indian economy. It's going to be severe and kind of prolonged.
You know, we were just talking about this, Mr. Mesh. We asked, what does it mean for people who've been so used to an 8% growth, so gung-ho upon how India has been growing for the last, several years? What does a -5 to -15% growth really mean?
So first, let's get the arithmetic out of the way and then understand what it means. So till the economy was growing at 8% and we were all gung-ho about it, it meant that if I had 100 rupees in my pocket in 1 year, 8% growth meant I would have 108 next year after saying that there is no inflation. So don't worry about inflation. If you have 100 rupees today in your hands, you have 108 rupees tomorrow because the economy is growing. A 5% decline or a 10% decline would mean that if you have 100 rupees today, you will have 90 tomorrow. And inflation is running at around 6% today. So imagine your 90 rupees will be 6% worth less. So you're almost going to say that you're going to have the order of only about 86 rupees, 85 rupees in your pocket compared to the 100 rupees you have today. That's the meaning of the economy shrinking by 10%. That your income of 100 will become an income of 85. But I think this is deceptive. This is arithmetically correct, but this is deceptive. Because this is on an aggregate for the economy as a whole. And the income distribution means that the rich will not get too pained by seeing this 10% fall in their income. But people in the middle classes, lower middle classes, will see this impact to be very severe because they don't have as much savings. And this is all aggregate. What happens to the millions of households that have actually lost jobs? Their income from 100 will not become 85 or 90. It will become 0 or close to 0. So when the economy shrinks, when the economy falls by 10%, it means many people lose their jobs. And when they lose their jobs, they are pained a lot more than what the aggregate GDP growth is. So it's very important to retain, to maintain a certain growth rate so that no one in the country sees a loss of income in their households. It's very important to maintain a certain amount of growth, and it's even better if the growth is more evenly distributed. But what's critically important first is to get growth right.
There's a story in Indian Express that says that if you look at the government portal that was initiated in July, about 65 lakh people have applied, but a very small fraction of those have actually got a job. And between the central government portal or the one launched by Delhi government and of course the Manrega schemes, to what extent has that helped?
So the government jobs are very different from Manrega jobs. So government jobs are the gold standard for most people in India. They aspire to get a government job because it is safe, it is reasonably well paying, and safety is the biggest thing. You don't lose a government job very easily. So that is different, and I don't think there are many going on there. You won't get too many government jobs. It's just not available. So the government also, the Prime Minister announced on Independence Day that there will be 100,000 jobs in the border districts. So, but even those don't add up much. Although the government is doing a lot to provide those jobs, they don't add up to much, really speaking. The way forward is to ensure that enterprises, private enterprises, do grow and do provide jobs. That's the only way in which you can solve the problem. The government cannot be the provider of all jobs, but the government can enable the private sector to provide jobs by helping create demand. So if aggregate demand in the economy can be increased, which means that people go out and spend, then enterprises will go and set up the capacities, hire people to do the production, to do the selling, to do everything else associated with it, and the economy can start humming again. That's the way forward that we require for the government not to provide jobs directly. That's not going to go very far. Manrega is also a short-term thing. What the government needs to do is to help grow aggregate demand, which can help private sector invest and create more jobs.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mahesh Vyas, for joining us today. I hope the next time we actually get to talk and catch up, we have something more, positive and encouraging to really talk about, at least in terms of the direction where we are headed. But thank you for joining me tonight on this conversation. Well, there you go. You heard it as far as the jobs crisis is concerned, and we have to be very, very careful. Most economists and experts believe this year we're going to see a negative growth. Our economy will effectively shrink, which means a larger impact on your and my earnings and livelihood as well. We'll keep a close track. For now, a quick break. I'll be back with more.